Hey, welcome to your first shipper update. I'm Michael Vincent. He's Anthony Smith. Dude, we've been getting together again every Thursday a little bit here lately.
Yeah.
Christmas morning with Anthony Smith.
Exactly. I mean, what better way to start your Thursday mornings than with some great economic news? I mean, I know 8:30, I'm just hitting that refresh button like a madman to see what just came out. So
Like
what
a
the
strong cup
news
of
numbers are.
coffee.
That's what it does for me. I don't even drink coffee, but that's what it does for me.
This is your coffee.
This is my coffee. So we have to jump into some of the latest economic news, and that's going to be in the form of the PPI. And Michael Vincent, guess what?
I don't know.
It went up again.
Did it
Inflation
really?
just keeps going
That's
up.
strange.
Yeah, it's just strange.
Is there a ceiling to this?
It might not be. It might not be at this moment. I mean, I do anticipate inflation to peak soon when we're looking at the form of the PPI, but that doesn't mean that prices are going to stop increasing. I think the rate of change will start to peak at some point soon, but I think we're still going to see some increasing in prices as we continue to move throughout a lot of the mid part of 2022.
Does it move like gas prices move? When there's an uptick, it's immediate, and when it drops, it's kind of...
I mean, when we're looking at gas prices and the producer price index, when we're looking at upstream, it's almost instantaneously. So when you start to see a lot of times when you look at the producer price index, it's going to be really a big push and pull on whether or not the economy is in a good position to take on those price increases. I mean, these businesses want to be able to protect their margins. So if you have a price increase, is the consumer in a good enough position to take on these price increases? What's the elasticity for the demand here? And if it's something like energy, those energy prices are going to be passed along right away. Those producers are going to take those hits. The appetite for purchasing energy is not very elastic. I mean, it's pretty elastic. You have to have it. You have to have it. And
right? So, it's not like you can just not have it.
Yeah, and so it's going to be one of those things where it's just like, all right, this is the way of life. And so when you look at some of these numbers, it really is going to play a big role into what we're going to have a lot of disposable income for after we're already paying for some of these pseudo-essential goods, because I guess you could walk a few miles if you really had to. But no one's really doing that really too much. But
well, I mean, and that's a great question. I mean, that's a great thing, because I remember as a kid in the 70s, and gas was expensive in the 70s. Nothing like it is now, but there was, there was rationing and all that other kind of stuff going on, right?
Exactly.
And so you just didn't go and buy other things because you didn't have the gas to go do it.
Exactly.
So that affects the price of other stuff. And I've seen that as well here, where I lost employees because they didn't have the funds to be able to drive the distance to get to work before.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It eats into, I think Thomas mentioned it on the load and rolling, some of the opportunity costs are what you're really being incentivized to do. So if you don't have those funds to really put towards maybe a goods or some of these services that we are kind of starting to shift our funds into, that's really going to be a really big deciding factor here. And so one of the last strongholds, because I had a chance to chat a little bit with Todd this morning, our executive producer here at FreightWaves. He said, what's some of the good news? And I had to think for a moment. I was like, there's a lot of jobs opening right now. So on our next chart here, I mean, we have total weekly initial jobs claims. And so this is going to be one of the last strongholds that we see here. I mean, we did see an uptick from the 166 that was the lowest number since, I think, for about 53 years or so. So it was one of the lowest numbers we've seen in quite some time.
60s, okay.
And so when we're looking at the most recent number, we saw that it was a tick up to 180. Now this is still near a 54-year low, and so it's nothing too, even though it's over a 10,000 applicant increase, it's nothing too really significant as like, oh no, we're heading in the wrong direction here. It's still near record lows. So this is going to be one of those last areas that's really going to be one of the great strongholds for consumer news, consumer activity. It's going to be, hey, there's a lot of jobs out there. So if you really needed to or wanted to trade up into a higher paying role, there's a better chance of it happening now. But really, I always talk about this now, is that vicious cycle where when you're looking at, hey, consumers are buying less goods, that means some of these producers are going to be making less money because their goods aren't being put out as...
The window's closing.
It's closing, so maybe they're going to be taking off some of those jobs on some of those goods producing, and once those jobs start to come down a little bit more, that means there's going to be fewer opportunities for those wage increases for a lot of consumers.
It'll be interesting. We only have a couple minutes left, but it'll be interesting to discuss with you and find out your opinion on how this happens, because right now we've got really low initial claims, right?
Yeah.
large opening of job openings that are out there, right? But the suspicion is a lot of people just left the market. Because 166 is really, at what point does the economy inflation start to hit this where you see this reversal where you go, holy cow, how can we have 12% unemployment all of a sudden? Does it change? Are you looking towards something like that or no?
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at the makeup, the composition of the employment market, it's completely different now. And so one of the big things is we have a lot less baby boomers and unfortunately a lot less women in the workforces right now as well. So that's a huge knowledge loss. So I mean, we're looking at women in the workplace that takes away from a lot of the diverse thinking. And we're looking at the baby boomers who have been able to really accrue a lot of knowledge over decades. That's a huge brain drain as well. So we're looking at that labor pool is completely different. We look at a really qualified baby boomer, something like that had maybe decades of experience. You're going to need about 2 or 3 people to replace some of those knowledge losses.
If I leave, you're going to need like 10 people at least.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Don't ever leave us, Vincent.
I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's the baby boomers just saying forget it and retiring early, right?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
getting out of it. That's interesting stuff. We'll catch up with you a little bit later, and maybe I won't sidetrack you next time. And we'll get
No, I love it. Let's do it.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Anthony. Right now, I'm going to toss it over to a quick break, and we'll be right back.